Hello party people and welcome to office hours in Iceland, coming to you from one of the black sand beaches on the south coast. You will forgive me for not sitting in this chair here. It's a little on the wet side. Even though I'm wearing waterproof pants, I don't know if they're quite that waterproof. So here for a couple of weeks, well, not here specifically, but here in Iceland for a couple of weeks, and thought I'd pop down and do an office hours. So let's take your top voted questions. Number one is not SQL, it's from BoBo. BoBo says, let us rate Brent's shirts. Morally flexible and maybe today Satan are my top picks. Which shirt gets you the most comments in public? Far and away the one that gets me the most comments is the one that says not a cop. People continuously laugh at that one and they're like, so you're really a cop, right? Or they actually think that I have something to do with law enforcement and I'm just off duty. And I'm like, no, do you want to buy some weed? And then they're really confused. They don't know what to think. Saint Elmo asks, which limitation of basic availability groups bothers you the most? Far and away, one database per basic availability groups. That makes, there are hardly any applications, and I don't want to say hardly any. Most applications in the real world span multiple databases, or they require the failover of multiple databases together. Maybe it's a transactional database plus its reporting copy. Maybe it's a separate set of tables that caches jobs or things like that. So having to deal with one database possibly failing over by itself is ridiculously stupid. Next up, Yusef says, our third-party web app vendor can't tell us what SQL permissions they need to create and run their reports. They're used to running everything as SA. What are some alternative ways to figure out the permissions that it actually needs? For starters, give them DB deny data writer, which stops them from writing tables. And then give them DB data reader, which allows them to read tables, and then rip out everything else. And then whenever they get a permissions error, start working with them to see, okay, what is it that you're trying to do? And let me give you granular permissions to that. Even that, the ability to do DB data reader in one database may be more than you want to give them, but at least if we're backing them down from SA, that's a really good way to start. Next up, Oleksii says, why can't we create an indexed view in Microsoft SQL if it uses an outer join? What exactly on a technical level prevents this on the server? Microsoft didn't code for it, that's all. Why didn't they code for it? Well, that's something that you would have to ask the product manager. Think about your own office and your applications that you support. Do you do everything that the end users want to do? Does your application support doing everything that your end users want to do? And if not, why not? Because you don't have unlimited time and resources, right? It's just limitations of pure human businesses, is that we don't have an unlimited amount of funds. If it's something that you want that badly, you'll want to talk with your Microsoft rep about what it would take to accomplish that. Would you need to leave to Oracle or threaten to leave to Oracle before they would consider coding it? And if your boss says, settle down, Speedy, we're not actually leaving for Oracle just because you want an indexed view, that might tell you why Microsoft isn't coding it. Next up, JRL says, what advice would you give someone who is creating an online training course on a technical topic? I saw you have a post about this, but it's about 9 years old and your thinking may have expanded or changed. You know what? I haven't put any thought into it. Since I wrote that post, I haven't put any thought into what advice I would give somebody. The first place, and I don't even know what's in that 9-year-old post, the first place I would start with is define your target attendee or the person who's going to pay for your course. Define them carefully. Write their bio. What's their name? Where are they from? What do they do all day long? What does their manager act like? What do their stakeholders act like? The more specific you can be about that, the better it'll help you understand what they know, what they don't know, what they need to know inside the training class, what's the bare minimum that you can teach them that will provide value. And it's not that I'm trying to get you to teach them the bare minimum, it's that I'm trying to get you to ship a course that will help them as much as possible, as quickly as possible, without thinking that you need to cover everything in the entire world, which often when folks start a training course, they're like, I need to start with everything from the beginning to the end. And users don't really want that. They want to get across the finish line as quickly as possible. Jacob asks, what are your experiences with Linux SQL High Availability? None. I got out of clustering and always-on availability groups before Microsoft brought out Linux or AGs on Linux, because I saw that writing on the wall, and I was like, that is going to be an absolute nightmare to work with, so I just avoided it altogether. Bandhu asks, what is your opinion of the new AI features in SQL Server 2025? Is this a checkbox feature? Yeah, which is good actually in this case. Microsoft appears to have looked at it and said, what's the bare minimum that we need to do in order to say that our databases work with AI? We need to create a system stored procedure that calls ChatGPT or Azure AI. Great, that's easy to do. We already have something similar to that in Azure SQL DB that just invokes an external REST endpoint. It is relatively simple for Microsoft to ship. The people who want AI integration will be happy that they can get it in that way. And I'm glad they didn't do any more than that. Not because I don't like AI. I love AI and I use it every single day, not when I'm on vacation. I use it every single day, but the ability to call it from a stored procedure is really all I need. That's fantastic for me, and it's a great version 1 to start with. I'm glad they didn't try to run LLMs in the database layer. This is fantastic. Next up, Bandhu has another question that was highly upvoted. What's your opinion of the new vector data type in Azure SQL DB? I haven't used it simply because it doesn't make sense to me. If you cache vectors in the database, you also have to know when those vectors need to be refreshed, and there's not a very good way of doing that today built into the database. You want some continuous change data capture on the AI side to tell you when the vectors and the outputting values have changed, and there's just nothing like that today. So I don't really think it's smart to store those in the database unless you're going to purge them, say, every 30 minutes and just use them as a caching layer, at which point, why are you using a database? Use a key value store or something like that that'll be more inexpensive for you to host rather than putting it in a relational database. That just doesn't make sense. You wouldn't join to it. You wouldn't join other tables to it. So that's generally my feeling. Anytime somebody wants to put data in a relational database, I'm like, great, tell me about the joins you're going to do. Tell me how you're going to join this to other tables. And if they kind of pause and go, well, we're not going to join it to anything. We're just going to use it as a cache. I'm like, Merp. That's not a relational database. Go use a caching layer. Dopinder asks, our IT admins are required to run Windows Update on all Azure VMs. Sometimes this results in a SQL CU being installed by IT instead of the DBA. What are your thoughts on this patching process? Every now and then a CU does fall into Windows Update when there's something security related in it. That's the last time I've looked at it. I really don't have any thoughts on that matter. And they're like, what? You said your IT admins are required to do it. Okay, so what am I going to do about that? Sometimes it helps as a database administrator, a data professional, really anything in IT. Sometimes it helps to understand what's a political limitation instead of what's a technical limitation. What you're describing is a political limitation. You and I, if we're going to change a political limitation, we have to do that politically. Just like if you're going to change a technical limitation, you have to use technical knowledge, not political knowledge. Those are different kinds of problems. Next up, G Vibes says, I have a 3 terabyte table on standard edition. It should have been compressed. Can you think of any way to fix that without partitioning it? My maintenance window is 10 hours per week. Oh, that's a really interesting question. The thing you want to search for is Michael J. Swart has a blog post about making table changes with no downtime, and it involves creating a view and gradually moving data from one table to another. I don't know the title of it off the top of my hand, or off the top of my head, or my hand. You search for Michael J. Swart, database changes, no downtime, and that should get you pretty close to it. It's like a 5-part series, so that'll also help you get closer to it. And odds are someone in the comments will link to it below. All right, there's a good handful of questions. I am off to go exploring Iceland. I'm going to move the camera so that you can see what else I'm doing here today. This is a giant black sand beach that you can go drive around on if you're so inclined. And that over there is, you see the cars over there, that's the nearest parking. That is what they call the Yoda Cave. There is a Yoda Cave in there, and as soon as you see it, you understand why they call it the Yoda Cave. It is absolutely adorable. Very cute, was in there earlier. So hope y'all had fun and learned something, and I will see y'all at the next office hours. I'm off to go get some lamb soup. Adios.